It's good to be with you all today. As Chris was sharing, I serve as the interim regional minister. I don't know how long that will be, but I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I've gotten to know Lou over the past several months and have had conversations with him, and he called me last week and shared with me his situation. I talked with him this morning. Some of you have heard this update already, but so it gets shared with everybody, he said it was okay to share that they have discovered that the mass has not moved outside of the nasal cavity, that it is not lymphoma, and that they are still holding out hope that it is benign, and that he may have surgery this week, this coming Monday or Tuesday, to remove the mass. And so we're thankful for that. He and Linda appreciate all of the prayers, the support, the encouragement, and the love that you hold for them. When I was speaking with them yesterday, they repeated that multiple times, and it's always good to hear about the way a congregation cares for their pastor and the pastor's family. Thank you for that. And on behalf of the region, I bring you greetings from your siblings in faith spread across that region that Chris described. It is great to be with you. Our scripture reading this morning comes from Psalm 121. Hear what the Spirit is saying to the church. I look up to the mountains. Does my strength come from the mountains? No, my strength comes from God, who made heaven and earth and mountains. He won't let you stumble. Your guardian God won't fall asleep, not on your life. Israel's guardian will never doze or sleep. God's your guardian, right at your side to protect you, shielding you from sunstroke, sheltering you from moonstroke. God guards you from every evil. He guards your very life. He guards you when you leave and when you return. He guards you now. He guards you always. Hear the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. It's been a week. You know, we end up getting those weeks, right? They come, and it feels like they knock your feet out from under you. And you wonder, or at least I do at times, how I'm going to get my feet back under me, stand back up, and step into the next day. My son called me. He's an engineer. Called from his work site and terribly upset, concerned that he had sent his crew into a project and that they had ended up covered in asbestos dust. Turns out they had not, but still, it kind of just made everything. My wife called this past week and said our son-in-law had been working, he's a luthier, had been working on a guitar and pushed a chisel, and the wood gave a little more than he anticipated, and the chisel went through his finger, and that he was going to be having surgery the next day to repair the tendon and to do a nerve graft. This is the same kid who back in February crashed his mountain bike and broke his compound fracture of his right leg and has been essentially immobile most of the spring. I got a call from another congregation with news that their pastor was ill. Lou called me on Thursday and told me what was going on. I got a call this morning, just literally after I hung up with Lou and Linda, that shared with me Pastor Charles Hines, the pastor of St. Francis of Assisi Christian Church in Draper, Utah, one of our congregations, a prison a prison congregation of ours, fell yesterday after worship and is still unconscious. Where's it stop? Y'all have faced challenges in the past few weeks. Loss of family members, parents, beloved spouses and friends. The elders this morning prayed for Ruth and Iris and Judy's families, as they grieve their losses. Where will our help come from? How will we make it forward? It's in times like this that I only begin to understand Jesus' prayer in Gethsemane. Take this cup from me. Let me go a different route. Isn't there an easier path? Isn't there some other way that we can make this, that we can end up in a way that is going to make more sense, that's going to be easier to travel, that it's going to be easier to walk? Isn't there some reward for following Jesus? The questions are big. They're real. They're a part of our faith and the struggles that we live with, and finding a way to deal with them and to be situated in these moments. And we can choose, and sometimes we do, we choose to look elsewhere. We seek out other possibilities and other options, other paths. And that's here in this psalm. We don't catch it in the English translation. But what is translated as moonstroke or sunstroke in this translation that I read a few moments ago is a reference to the Egyptian sun god and the Chaldean moon god. And this possibility, realistically, of choosing one of these alternative paths for the people of Israel. God's faithful. And the psalmist is singing to remind the people that their God is one who can be depended upon even in the midst of chaos. I find it striking that the call to worship this morning, the praise song that is sung, and the prayers that have been prayed already this morning lift up and recognize God as our creator who overcomes the chaos. Literally, that's how the beginning of Genesis begins, the tohu vabohu. God tames the chaos. And then in 7 days puts everything in its proper place and proper order. That's how that whole opening of that book, of that first chapter, up to about the 3.5 verse of the second chapter are organized. That God is the one who overcomes the chaos. The psalmist is singing that. This is probably a psalm of ascent, meaning that it was sung as the people of Palestine made pilgrimage to Jerusalem. They were going to the temple. Maybe it was for a high holy days, maybe it was for some other occasion, but they would sing this psalm on their way to be reminded of why they were going. Not to worship the Egyptian sun god, not to worship the Chaldean moon god, but to worship Yahweh, the God of the Hebrew people, the God of Israel. They were stuck, right, between Egypt and the Chaldeans. Geographically, they're right there in the middle. They're pinched. They're always pinched. Throughout their history, they're pinched in the midst of the conflicts of all of the other power players of the region. And still they sing this song, "From where will my help come? My help comes from God." We carry a lot. And I named several things that impacted me, some that impacted you, the impacts upon Lou and Linda and upon you as a congregation and upon us as a region. What I know is there's more I don't know. There's more that hasn't been named out loud. And it's hard. And we come to this place and we have to figure out which fork in the road we're going to take. And how we're going to navigate the challenges that are before us. And where we will seek help. And it's easy to get lost, isn't it? You just happen to think, I'll just do this briefly and I'll start down this way, and pretty soon you're in the middle of nowhere, Colorado. The other night, I'm driving back. For those of you that don't know, I live in an RV because this is a temporary gig. It may be a couple years, but it's still a temporary gig. I was going to my camp where I'm staying, and I was in an area where my phone didn't work. I was coming back from someplace I had not been to before, and I thought I recognized a turn, and I made that turn, and suddenly I am in the middle of a dirt road in the middle of prairie, not knowing which direction I'm even traveling because my phone has zero reception. Right? It's easy to get lost. It's easy to get off the path. And how do you find your way back? One of the ways that we find our way back in terms of our journey of faith is we turn to the witness of Scripture and we are reminded of the stories of our faith. We're reminded that the psalmist sings going up to Jerusalem, that God is our help, no matter what it is that is coming upon us, no matter the challenge that we're facing, God is our help. Not the mountains, not the sun god, not the moon god, Yahweh. God sees us through all that comes. It doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean that you're not going to experience grief, because you are, and it's going to hurt more than anything that you can imagine. It's going to feel like you're trapped in chaos. But please remember, you are not alone. You have those that are beside you right now. You have others in other communities that are your siblings in faith, testifying and reminding you that God is your help. And God remains with you no matter what. There is nothing that you can do ever that will make God stop loving you. And what does God's love mean? It means that God seeks our well-being in all things. Doesn't mean everything's going to be easy. Doesn't mean everything's going to be hunky-dory, because it's not, right? But it means that God is going to seek our spiritual, our physical, our emotional, and our intellectual well-being in all things. As you think about the challenges that are before you, the burdens that you carry, the journey of faith that you're walking. Keep praying. In all times, in all things, and live with that trust, knowing that you are loved no matter what. And ultimately, that's enough. Even in the midst of all of the chaos, that's enough.